Grace and peace. I'm Pastor Seth, and I welcome you to Aloha Friday in the Pastor Study. Over the past few weeks, we've been reading Revelation. Last week, we read Revelation chapter 4. And this week, we're jumping ahead to Revelation chapter 13. Before I go on, I want to give you a little bit of background to my life. As a boy, I loved math. It's one of my favorite subjects in school. The teachers never had to tell me why I needed to learn math or how it was going to be helpful in my future. I just loved doing math problems, and so I did them regularly. And as I went further up the educational ladder, I took more and more math classes whenever I could. And then, when I graduated from college and entered the real world, I ended up doing many engineering and technical jobs where math was a part of my daily work routine. The point is that I know numbers and I know math problems. I say this because many people look at Revelation and see a lot of numbers in it. And numbers can be tricky. They see these numbers and they think, aha, if I do the right math problem, I can figure out when Jesus is coming back. Or I could figure out who the secret Antichrist is. Well, bad news. The book of Revelation is not a math problem. Yes, there are a lot of numbers in there, and those numbers do mean things, but you're not going to be able to crack the secret code in order to learn the deep secrets of this world. That's not the point of Revelation. In fact, Revelation is trying to make the secrets of the world visible and understandable to us. We all have eyes, though some of us might have eyes that don't work quite as well as they used to. But our physical eyes help us see and understand the physical world. But we don't have eyes that see and help us understand the spiritual world. This requires much more effort on our part. What John is doing in Revelation is showing us an image of the spiritual reality behind the physical reality. We don't need to do math in order to figure out what John is saying in Revelation. He's telling us. John is showing us many signs and visions in an effort to help us build our faith in God so that when the day of suffering comes for us, our faith will be strong enough so that we can be faithful and true to God. But if we're not strong enough, then when the day comes, we might turn from Him and follow after the false Christs. That is what Revelation 13 is about. Many of the false gods, antichrists, that come and attempt to turn us from our Lord and Father. So will you please join me in reading Revelation chapter 13. And the dragon stood on the shore of the sea. And I saw a beast coming out of the sea. He had 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on his horns, and on each head a blasphemous name. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, had feet like those of a bear, and a mouth like that of a lion. The dragon gave the beast his authority and power, and his throne. One of the heads of the beast seemed to have had a fatal wound, but the fatal wound had been healed. The whole world was astonished and followed the beast. Men worshipped the dragon because they had given authority to the beast, and they also worshipped the beast and asked, "Who is like the beast? Who can make war against him?" The beast was given a mouth to utter proud words and blasphemies, and to exercise his authority for 42 months. He opened his mouth to blaspheme God and to slander his name and his dwelling place, and those who live in heaven. He was given power to make war against the saints and to conquer them, and he was given authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. All inhabitants of the earth will worship the beast, all whose names have not been written in the book of life belonging to the Lamb that was slain from the creation of the world. He who has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is to go into captivity he will go. If anyone is to be killed with a sword, with the sword he will be killed. This calls for patient endurance and faithfulness on the part of the saints. Then I saw another beast coming out of the earth. He had 10 horns like a lamb. He had 2 horns like a lamb and spoke like a dragon. He exercised all the authority of the first beast on his behalf, and made the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose fatal wound had been healed. And he performed great and miraculous signs, even causing fire to come down from heaven to earth in full view of men. Because of the signs he was given power to do on behalf of the first beast, he deceived the inhabitants of the earth. He ordered them to set up an image in honor of the beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived. He was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast, so that it could speak and cause all who refused to worship the image to be killed. He also forced everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on his right hand or on his forehead, so that no one could buy or sell unless he had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of his name. This calls for wisdom. If anyone has insight, let him calculate the number of the beast, for it is man's number. His number is 666. As I said, Revelation 13 has many numbers in it, and it is tempting for us to try to solve the math problem here. But there really isn't a math problem here. It's a spiritual problem. To help us understand this spiritual problem, we don't need to understand math, but we need to understand a little bit about Greek grammar. Specifically, I am talking about the divine passive. Now, if you want to learn more about the divine passive, I encourage you to do your own research after this, but a quick and dirty Greek grammar lesson. Now, verbs, there are many different kinds of verbs. 2 of the biggest ones are active verbs and passive verbs. Now, if I were to do something, that would be an active verb. For example, if I took my mouse and threw it against the wall, I threw my mouse against the wall is an active verb. The mouse was thrown against the wall. The mouse isn't doing anything. Something is happening to the mouse. It's passive. Now, whether it's active or passive, there's almost always 2 nouns associated. One noun which is doing the action, and one noun which is receiving the action. Somebody who does something and somebody who receives something. Much like giving a gift. You don't actively receive the gift, you passively receive it. Now, the divine passive is a special case where a passive verb is used, but we're never told who is doing the action. For example, in chapter 13, we can read, for example, in chapter 13, verse 7, we read how the first beast was given power to make war against the saints. This raises the question, who gave the first beast the power and authority to do this? We're never told. This is an example of the divine passive. When the active member is not named, but the passive person receiving the action is named, we always assume that the unnamed person is God. What chapter 13 is showing us is that this world is full of evil, full of chaos. It is often difficult to understand, maybe even impossible to understand what is happening in the world. But what chapter 13 is showing us is that evil powers and authorities would not have power if God did not give it to them. Again, this is confusing, but what it shows us is that God is always in control. So let chapter 13 increase your faith, so that when you face a time of suffering, perhaps a time where you have to face the sword or prison, know that behind the evil powers persecuting you, God is still on the throne. God still reigns. And God's perfect will be done. This requires patient endurance on our part and a lot of wisdom to help us know how to act in this world. So brothers, sisters, I encourage you to always act with faith, hope, and love. Even when the world tries to make us act out of fear or anger or pain, tries to make us worship in order to gain riches and power. Resist that temptation. Worship God and act with faith, hope, and love. Until next time, God bless you.